everybody. So Emily from DC Sound Attack, and today we are interviewing the incredible EARTHTONE9.
Hello.
Lovely to meet you.
Great to meet you.
Would you be okay with just introduce yourself for anybody who hasn't heard of EARTHTONE9?
Okay.
I mean, it's impossible, but for anybody out there who needs to get on the radar.
My name's Karl. I sing in the band EARTHTONE9. What else?
Literally, they're legendary. Like, I don't, you know, if you haven't got it, get on it. Come on. I think jumping right in, because there's so much, and you guys have had and have such a fantastic career. It's hard. I bet it's hard to kind of pinpoint certain stuff when you're asked like what to highlight, what to. So I think from other interviews, from watching you as well, what artists and bands have inspired your sound that you carry with to this day? So it could be an artist or a band that immediately from when you guys formed, you carry with still, that lingers with you when you record an album. Yeah. What would you say, you personally, speaking for the rest of the band?
I guess like the spirit of adventure and exploration would. We grew up listening to bands like Faith No More, and you know, that sort of late 80s and early 90s melding of styles where there was something interesting happening, where it was like what is metal and what can be metal and what can go in the pot, you know. And so that was kind of like pre-new metal, and then interesting things were happening with new metal where there was a sort of rap and a hip-hop influence coming in, and that wasn't anything that spoke to us, but it was good to be part of that, where it was, what can it be? And so I suppose, you know, when we started, some of us were listening to stoner and sludge, so some Neurosis, some Hiatus, some COC, but then also Carcass, Testament, you know, just that mix. So there's quite a lot in there. And then I personally really like a band called King's X that when they came out, people used to speak about them being a cross between like the Beatles and Metallica and also Rush. So like lush harmonies, really heavy, intricate, interesting riffs, beautiful sort of song arrangements. And so that's a sort of overview of all of the stuff that is there when we're inspired and what we reference. And then I guess with this new album, it wasn't like the get back to your roots kind of thing, but it was like, why do we like metal? What is it that we love about it? It's like the energy and the urgency. And it felt like over time we had become a little bit more polished and focused on songwriting, and that we ended up sort of almost like in a grungy place, and we didn't want to do that for this new album. So yeah, it was like we wanted more pace, we wanted it to feel more metallic, and we just wanted it to feel more urgent and sort of have that thing, you know, when you put on Pantera and you're just like we wanted people to hear our record and feel that.
That's fascinating. I think listening to your music, that's really given me and I think others a real insight to how you play. So thank you for that, because that's really fascinating. No worries. Now I think this is a bit of a tricky one in my opinion, but what is your go-to songwriting process? Because you have such a cool and clever sound. I think even if you don't have one, that is absolutely fine. Yeah. But I think if you and the band were like, okay, how do you kind of churn?
I can tell you what the biggest change has been, which is that because of our era, we used to gather in a room and prepare and bring bits in and then collaboratively compose, I guess, piece things together. But what can sometimes happen in that setting is that people gatekeep. And so it's almost like you get inherent within that collaborative process is compromise. And so it's like we found ourselves at a point where it's like, oh, well, we all tolerate this and we think it's pretty good, but we weren't like, this is the shit, we love it. And so with the sort of the technology has developed so much, so you know, you can do home demos to a standard that would be better than albums were in the late 90s and early 2000s on a budget. And so oftentimes now Owen's like the principal songwriter in that he's the generator of music and musical ideas, and he will do an arrangement and then send it, and I'll put a top line on it, and Joe will do something similar, and then it's this kind of iteration thing. But we're now we're able, I guess, to serve Owen's creative vision better, rather than it being like a dogfight of who wants their part to be in there. You know what I mean? So that's that's generally the process. But what's cool about that is, in the past, when you're writing in a rehearsal room, everything's so loud you can't hear detail, and so it's almost like everything sounds cool because it has weight and energy.
I completely
whereas with this, you can hear the nuance and the detail, and there's really good opportunity to focus. You can dig into bits that you couldn't have done in that old way. So I guess the process is just listening and hearing and being supportive and wanting to come up with the best material possible. And in the past as well, we were always on the clock. We put out an album a year, basically 3 albums in 24 months in the first phase of the band.
Amazing.
Yeah, well, it felt like the secret weapon for a small indie band was pace and busyness. And, at that point, larger bands were recording an album every 3 years, but they had the resources and the reach to tour for 18 months or 2 years. And we knew we didn't have that. But bands were mimicking that approach. But what that meant was you would do an album. You could probably, if you were DIY, tour for a little while. Mm-hmm. But then you would kind of, it was almost like you would get stuck in the mud. So this was our way of, being able to be busy and build. And it was great, but what it meant was we lit a fuse, and we probably did 10 years worth of work in 2 or 3 years, and then we burnt out, and that's why we broke up and went away for quite a long time in the early 2000s.
Gosh, okay, that's quite bad. I think that kind of links into what my next question was, which is unfortunately a little bit long because there is so much cool.
You fire away, but I have a terrible memory, so you might have to break it down.
That's absolutely fine. Don't you worry. I think going back to that, link into that as well, the fantastic success that you've had, especially what you've built up in the dedicated fan base. I think particularly with your third album, ARC TAN, that I guess you have a lot of renounce for, and a lot of people will say that to you as well. And I think, Kerrang! And Metal Hammer, just to name 2, it had such a massive feature.
Yes.
And people found it in so many different ways through that, and people were really inspired by that album, I found. I think I saw that in 2024, I found out that Dom Lawson of Blabbermouth.net wrote that the album was regarded as one of the great British metal records of its era. And
he's a very nice man.
Reading that, I was like, you know what? Listening back, I was like, listen to the whole album. It really has got that sound. I think that I'm listening to a lot of bands now, and I'm thinking they've listened to EARTHTONE9, they've listened to EARTHTONE9, which is so cool to hear. I think how was the journey recording that album for you, ARC TAN, that has inspired many, and the famous festival ARC TAN as well.
So how was the recording of the album?
The recording process of that album that's inspired so many.
It was really exciting because the opportunity to work with Andy Sneap, we were fans of Sabbath in our teenage years. So he was in a band before he got Machine Head's guitar sound. Really made that second album that Machine Head did what it was. And he was starting to work with really good, big, established metal bands. And he was like a hero from our scene in that UK thrash era. So that felt like a real step up. And then how we had worked on those earlier albums was, very much about warts and all, smash it down, and like pace and energy and intent being at the forefront. Whereas this became, we did preparatory work that we hadn't done before. We scrutinized the material. We did pre-production. And then we had much longer to record. And the people that we had worked with on the earlier records, Andy did do one of the demos that comprised the first album, but they were helping us to sound as good as we possibly could sonically, but they weren't really vocal or talking to us about could the song be better. They were talking about how the sound could be better.
Okay.
And so, Andy came in with like that true producer's piece to it. And, the album just sounds much more sophisticated and professional than compared to our early 2 albums. It felt like a step up. And at that point we had momentum, and there was this thing where, there was a lot of success stories that were being exported from the US and coming into the UK, almost like the UK was a bridge to Europe. And the UK press were territorial is not quite the right word, but they were supportive of UK bands because they wanted to give them as much of a platform as they could and support them. And so there was very much this kind of funny beating the Yanks at their own game kind of thing. And we were somewhat the beneficiaries of that, but it made it like this sort of adversarial thing that was a little bit peculiar for us because we felt like we were quite different to those bands anyway. But, you know, when that album came out, it was very close to the time that Papa Roach had their breakthrough album and the Disturbed had their breakthrough album. And I guess Linkin Park might have even come out in that year. And so it actually felt peculiar to us because those were already enormous bands that had blown up in the US, and then kind of the ripples had come over. Yeah. And so it felt strange to be in that mix. But like I said,
I can imagine it would be, but it makes sense for you guys. You guys are incredibly inspiring to a lot of people, fans alike, and musicians today. And
that's what happens if you stick around for long enough. All of a sudden, you're wise.
Honestly, it's so cool to see how when you listen to bands, and I'm hearing like they've listened to EARTHTONE9, like they really love their stuff, especially like ARC TAN GENT. I think it's just such a cool record.
Thank you. It might, it might be an accident because we were just like, we love the aggression of metal, but we also like the hookiness of grunge, and so. A few years after we broke up, Killswitch Engage came through, and they're a little bit more polished, and they have a sort of almost like a European metal sensibility to us. Yeah. But some people have said, they sound a bit like EARTHTONE9, but they've never heard us. It's just a coincidence of the similar influences that go in the pot. You know what I mean?
But I see you guys as kind of trailblazers in a way, to be honest. I think especially what you've done.
It's nice to be thought of in that way.
It really is. And I think even for me, from an outside perspective, you really have, I think with this album and your records as a whole, your discography, it really, really has trailblazed for a lot of other artists.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just someone I missed out earlier actually, but when I first heard Fear Factory, that mix of aggressive vocals and melodic vocals, Demanufacture came out, when I was in my early 20s, and I was just like
mind blown.
And so so it's like, what elements that are exciting can you get into a song but find a way of it having coherence and feeling like it's correct instead of like it's a song instead of just like lots of parts. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that's what loads of those bands that I referenced did. It was so exciting to hear all of that stuff in there.
I bet to be caught up in all that must have felt. I mean, as an experience, I think going off that for you all as a band, how was that experience for you emotionally, as well as like there's so much going on around you. You're at the league with, like you've said, because you are up there with Papa Roach and the likes of Linkin Park, because especially in my opinion, you guys are absolutely up there. What was the experience like for you guys to be caught up in that?
I think when you're young and forward focused, you're always trying to build. We were competitive and grumpy about what wasn't happening instead of being grateful for what was.
Bit, I guess, being caught up in that. Well, have a little bit.
It's hard to find a balance when you're in it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So one show we did, it was Crazy Town's first UK show, and we got bumped down to opener so they could come in, and we were just like, this band has no place above us. This is not cool. But they'd had a massive hit single in the US, and they were being played in 400 Top Shops or some shit like that. And so it just, it felt unjust, but it was us being 20-somethings and being immature, really. Yeah. But hindsight's a wonderful leveler, and so now it's just like
Is it strange in a way to look back on that?
And sometimes I can't believe it.
Yeah,
but you know what I mean? It's also so long ago, I'm like, is it a dream? Did I do it?
Did that really happen, guys?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. That's incredible to hear, I think. Especially, it's such a realistic point of view as well, because I think that could help many aspiring young musicians out there. So if they do get caught up in that thing, how do they cope with that? So that's very helpful.
There's lots more talk about it now. It's much more visible, but being present in the moment and seeing what is instead of skipping over it or bypassing it and thinking about an imagined future, which is it's in the future. It's a nothing. is really important for enjoying what is happening, and not getting lost in weird expectation.
Yeah, I think going back to what you mentioned earlier, obviously with the band when you were apart for quite a long time and it was on a hiatus. How did you feel stepping back onto the stage after such a long time when you guys reunited in 2010?
Well, I mean,
kind of how was the journey for you in the sense of you stepped back onto that stage with everyone? Yeah. Did it feel like EARTHTONE9 was in a new era in its sense? Or,
Totally. Well, lots of the stuff that we weren't able to do initially became available to us.
Oh, okay.
And so in 2000, there weren't these kinds of festivals so much, really. You know, it was either like Download and Reading or nothing.
Oh, okay, so that was the...
Pretty much, yeah.
You got your
so when we reformed, we played Damnation, then we played... we did play Download in 2013, but we played Sonosphere, and then we also played Bloodstock. And so we had dreamed of playing festivals and hadn't been able to really do it, and that just happened. And so it was like a full circle moment, just like off the back of it. And we didn't have a new album out either, so it was confusing to us, but amazing as well. And then there were enough people that kind of missed our presence and still appreciated us, that were there for us instead of it. It felt like our crowd was there, which was also wonderful.
It was really emotional for all of you.
Yeah.
In a way of feel like you're coming home in a sense, but also after such a long time. Like you said, you have so much wisdom. You guys have been in the game for so long. You are gods in the sense of the knowledge you have.
Yeah.
And I think coming back onto that stage, having a new look on things and a new eye.
Yeah.
A new sight for stuff.
Yeah. And I mean, it felt great.
Yeah.
And
the energy still stands to this day in your performances. Though.
Yeah.
Well,
I hope so.
It really does. No, honestly, it really does.
Yeah. I mean, it's a really important part of what makes metal amazing. It's that performance element. It's not like it's WWE. It's real, but it's still there's a cathartic, visceral element to it that isn't present in lots of other music forms that are great to listen to, but not necessarily great to watch.
Massive tour coming up.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I think, because I'm dying to know this, what was the name that inspired you guys for EARTHTONE9? Because I'm really fascinated by the fact that, is it a case of a lot of bands of, I like that, let's pick that, or like someone just threw out something and they went EARTHTONE9, or you kind of pieced it together? Is there a meaning behind it for you guys personally?
The name of the band?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was like a hurry up and wait sort of thing, and we were hoping for the right sort of thing to come through. And so we were looking for something like punchy, but that had layers of meaning to it. And at the time, we liked the band Clutch, and it's like, that's a cool sounding word.
Yeah.
And so
we
were trying to think of things along those lines. And we sent a demo into Kerrang, and then all of a sudden they called us up and they're like, we're going to run a story on it. We really like the demo. What's the name of the band? And we didn't have a name at that point.
Okay.
And so we'd got caught in that thing of thinking too hard and everything seemed shit. Yeah, and you know what I mean? Oftentimes when you interrogate a band name, the name itself might seem silly or weird, but actually it's because you know who the band, like Alice in Chains, when you're like, a woman in chains. That's nothing to do with that music. But it just kind of falls off the tongue. There's something about the syllables and the sounds. And we were like, oh, we need something cool. We need something that's right, blah, 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 blah. And then I think it was Joe. We were looking through Meantime by Helmet, like the album. And the first word in the Meantime by Helmet is Earth Tone Suits You. And so, and then I think, I can't remember, it was before the internet, so I can't remember how we looked it up, but it may be in a book.
Yeah.
And Earth Tone, in some circles, it means like the shades of death. And then we were like, oh, that's kind of like, ha ha ha. I remember at the time I worked in like the arts, and so I was like, oh, we could make it so it's like a Pantone reference, so Earth Tone 9, and then
that's brilliant.
And then it was like, oh, but what about Earth Tone to the power of 9? Like, you know, Earth Tone nine iterations of Earth Tone kind of thing. And so yeah, just it snowballed into this thing where it has lots of meanings, but also, you know, we just sat around talking about it, and none of that stuff really matters. But yeah,
it's important to you guys.
That's kind of like the evolution of the name and where some bits of it came from. And then it just became really clunky to say Earth Tone to the power of 9. It seemed a bit redundant, and so it just turned into Earth Tone 9.
That sounds so cool. Now I know that, it makes a lot of sense, and it really is like, I mean, the word gets passed around a lot now, but you know, when someone says there's so much lore to about, you know, I feel like there is a lot of lore to you guys in such a cool way, and I think.
Well, do you know, I mean, we formed this band like 29 years ago, but we've been
put it like that. That's
we've been
mental.
We've had periods of inactivity that cover like 20 years of those 29 years. So it's just such a long stretch of time. You know, there's just lots of things happen. You know, lots of lives been lived, lots of collaborative life has been lived, and there's lots of stories and things.
Oh, that's amazing. I won't take up too much of your time, so
no
thank
worries.
you so much. But I would love to ask one more question for you.
Fire away.
Okay, because I am fascinated to know. Say that someone is, hopefully not, but say someone has just discovered you, because they should already know you. But say someone has just discovered you the first time, someone's getting into metal, loads of different subgenres, they want to start listening. Is there a track that you would recommend people to listen to for the first time of Earth Tone 9 as like an introduction to you guys? So, for example, you're like, oh, if you want to listen to us, this is what I recommend.
All the bits that make us us, kind of thing.
Yeah. Like you personally, what would you recommend a track for people that are? I think you should start listening to this if you want to get into us.
Yeah.
Be it a single, an album.
Yeah.
Be an entire.
I would probably skip around a bit.
Okay.
So.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, like, Tatuamasi is probably the song that most people know. And it's got quite a lot of the elements. And then, you know, there are songs on our new album that I think really sort of encapsulate who we are now. So, I mean, I guess you are talking about our songs, right?
Your discography. Say if someone was like, I want to start listening to you guys. Yeah. How do I get? And you'd be like, I think you should listen to this song.
Yeah.
I think you should listen to this.
I would say maybe like Withered from our first album.
Yeah.
I Nagulai from our second album.
Okay.
Probably cool. Tatuamasi from the third album.
Cool. So I've left the most difficult ones.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I was just thinking about all the EPs we've done as well.
I'd just love to know kind of how you'd be like. I think similar to how Deftones did it with Digital Bass, because Chino said that I think people should listen to Digital Basses. I've never heard us before.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that's a great introduction.
I mean,
similar to you guys, I think.
Yeah.
There's so much.
Yeah. There's a song called Third Mutuality on the new album, which is something that I think is the pinnacle of who we are and what we do. But it's it's like a deep cut. You know, so maybe you'd need to be in the choir to appreciate that one. You know what I mean?
Oh, I like that.
What song would you recommend to people?
Honestly, literally, that's really funny because the song that you just said. Because I was thinking of that, especially from the vocals point of view, because I'm more oriented towards the vocals.
Yeah.
And from you saying that about the etherealness of it, and that's how it sounds to me.
Okay.
So coming into that, I would recommend that.
Okay.
So
great.
Because that's actually really funny. I was listening, I was like, oh my god, like how did he know he was just going to pull that out? What the hell? And I think because you have so much discography, it really, really works. So I think that's why it's interesting to know what you'd recommend to someone if they want to start.
Yeah. I mean, I think it would change just because, you know, I'm trying to pluck it out of my mind now, but it'll be a mood orientated thing, you know what I mean? It's easy to overthink that stuff as well. And sometimes just need to go with your gut.
Oh,
so
thank you so much.
Publish and be damned. That'll do.
That's amazing. No, that's really, thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
They've got a massive tour coming up, which, oh my days. Guys, tickets, come on, like
Yeah, come see us.
Like, come on, like you're going to be missing out if you don't. So thank you so much. It's an absolute pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.